farms across the land, fresh green grass is the demand.
Hello everybody, hello children, welcome to today's online field trip. I am Sam and this is our guide for today. This is Jim. Hello Jim.
Hi Sam, hello children.
As you can see, we are surrounded by cattle, and the reason for this is because we're in Penzance in Cornwall to learn all about beef. Now Jim is a farmer, he lives here on the farm with his family. So Jim, how long have you been farming for?
40 years now, ever since I left school.
Oh my gosh, so a long
time ago, yeah.
Talking of long times, I learnt this week that we have been rearing cattle to eat for thousands of years.
Well, according to records, people think now that we've been rearing for over 10,000 years. People had meat for the eating and milk to drink.
Fantastic.
So a very long time.
So such a long time.
Yeah.
So not everybody eats meat though, do they, Jim?
No, a certain percentage, either for religious beliefs or if you're a vegetarian, won't consume meat, but it basically is their own people's preference.
Yeah, of course.
Which we all have to respect.
It's down to everybody's decision as to whether they eat meat or not. I think this is going to be a very exciting field trip. I think the cattle are getting very excited. So Jim, what are we going to find out while we're on the farm today?
Hopefully you'll find out all about our breed of cattle, what we do with them, what feed them, how we look after them in the winter and in the summer. And obviously, you've got questions from the children. I will hope try and learn something from them.
Fantastic.
You never stop learning.
And we'll find out a bit more as well about what we make from beef as well. There's lots of different products. So should we meet who we've got taking part today on this online field trip? Let's go over to our schools. Our first school taking part today is All Saints Primary School. They're in Barry, and it's Miss Dalton's class that's taking part. So hello, children.
Hello, children. Wave.
Fantastic. Let's go over to our next school. Let's go over to Downsbrook Middle School in Worthing, where Mrs. Sharp's class is taking part. Hello, children.
Hello.
Fabulous stuff.
Yeah.
Let's go over to Ben Weavis Primary now in Conan Bridge, where Miss Hamilton's class is taking part. Hello, children.
Oh, yes, they're all up for it.
All very excited. And finally, let's go to Holy Trinity Rosehill in Stockton-on-Tees, where Mr. Waller's class is taking part. Hi, children.
They're well behaved.
Fabulous stuff. It's great to have you all watching and learning with us today, children. I think the first thing we should do is find out a bit more about where we are, because as I said, we're in Penzance in Cornwall. So, Jim, why is this area of the country so good for rearing cattle?
Well, for those who don't know the countryside, we're in Penzance, which is in the far west of Cornwall, more or less as far down southwest of England as you could get. We have a very mild climate. Unfortunately, a lot of cloudy, muggy weather because we're surrounded by sea, but it does make us excellent for growing grass. And there's one thing that cattle like is lots of grass to eat.
Fab. So it's a really good place.
It's a really good. And we get mild climates, so we get short winters, hopefully.
Brilliant, fantastic. So obviously, Jim, you are our expert today because you're the farmer, but I do know we have lots of mini experts out there because we have lots of resources and information online on the website all about cattle and beef. And I know some of you have already been learning this week about all of that. So let's put you to the test. Let's go over to All Saints Primary School now and find out what you have learned and what you do know already. Who do we have there, Miss Dalton?
Cows have 4 parts to their stomach to digest hard food.
That's really, really great fact. So cows have 4 parts to their stomach so they can digest grass.
Well, that's very impressive, but they actually have 4 separate stomachs, and each stomach processes part of the food they eat, which means they can process the grass very well, either to produce meat or for beef. But that's very good, very knowledgeable fact. Very
Fantastic.
good.
Let's get another fact. Let's go back over to All Saints Primary.
There are an estimated 300 million cows in India.
What, so there's an estimated 300 million cows in India.
That's an awful lot of cattle. That's slightly more than what I've got, and I wouldn't like to look after that many.
I was going to say,
But
you
that's-
probably wouldn't get any sleep, would you, Jim,
No,
really?
that's another very useful fact.
Fantastic. It seems,
Yeah.
children, you are teaching Jim some facts today. Let's get another one.
Cows can smell odours from up to 6 miles.
That's a great fact. So cows can smell odours from up to 6 miles away, Jim.
Again, that's a fact that I didn't know about. All I know, my wife can smell me when I come in.
Fantastic. I'll tell you what, children, you are teaching Jim a thing or two. Let's get our final fact.
Cows have almost panoramic 360 vision.
This is a great fact. So cows have almost panoramic vision, so 360 vision, so they can see behind us, Jim, or behind them.
Again, I didn't know that fact, but that is probably, again, comes from nature. In the wild, the cow would have predators and be able to see all around them is their natural defence mechanism. Another very good fact.
Great, they
well
are.
Done. Well done, children.
Well done,
yeah.
children. You have been learning a lot about cattle already.
Yeah.
Let's find out a little bit more about Jim's cattle now. So what type do you breed here, Jim? And do they have a special name?
Yeah, our specialist breed, predominantly, we rear a breed called Simmental. They originally come from Switzerland, the Simien Valley, and were started to be imported into this country in the early 80s, I think it was now, about just over 30 years ago. When we gave up milk years ago, we liked this breed because of various traits, and we just progressed from there to where we are today.
Great stuff. So you have one particular breed. What other breeds do we eat?
There's lots of other breeds in the UK, all over the world, in fact, you get them. But basically in the UK, you have two different types. You either have what they call continental breeds or native breeds. The native breeds, the most common ones are the Aberdeen Angus, which is a big black cow you see a lot, used a lot in crossing. You have the Hereford, which is the British equivalent of the Simmental. They also have a white face, but are not quite so big as our Simmentals. You then have the Devons, big brown cow, used a lot in this, obviously by the name Devon, neighbouring county. A lot of them are found in the West Country, a big breed. You then have the Charolais, or the Continentals, which is the Charolais, the first of the imports, big grey, very strong cattle, used a lot in Scotland and everything. And then you have various other breeds, British Blue, Limousines and various other ones, and then cross them all together.
Wow,
but lots of breeds.
There's lots of types.
Yeah.
I didn't realise.
Yeah.
I didn't realise. Of course, we eat a lot of beef. How much do we eat in this country?
Well, the latest estimate is something like 280,000 tonnes of beef a year.
Wow, that is a lot.
Which would be a big shed to put them all in, and yes.
That is a lot.
A very lot, yeah.
Is it mostly beef from cattle like yours that are kind of reared on a farm like this that we eat?
The majority of beef does come from what we call grass-fed. It is based around grass as their main feeding thing, which is what animals are naturally produced to come from.
Great
Yeah.
stuff. Well, thank you so much, Jim. We're learning lots. It's time to learn some more now. This is our first short video. This is all about cattle and a bit about the history too as well. Enjoy.
Cattle around the world. Humans have been keeping cattle for meat since Neolithic times. That's over 10,000 years ago. We know this from beautiful cave paintings that have been discovered across the world. This tells us they must have been very important to our ancestors, thousands and thousands of years ago. It is thought that modern cattle all evolved from a herd of around 80 animals that were domesticated in a part of the world we now call Turkey and Iraq. This original herd were not cattle as we know them, but probably a kind of animal called an aurochs that is now extinct. Today, there are many different breeds of cattle, over 800 around the world, and some of them look rather strange. One such breed is found in Africa. The Ankole Watusi. It has huge horns filled with blood vessels to help it stay cool under the hot African sun. Across the Indian Ocean in the jungles of South Asia is where another breed of cattle originated, the Zebu. It has a large hump on its back and flabby skin under its chin, although no one knows exactly why. Here in the United Kingdom, we have over 50 breeds of cattle. Some of the most common of these that you'll see grazing in the fields are Aberdeen Angus, Hereford, South Devon, and Charolais. These are all farmed for the quality of their meat and the fact they don't mind our colder weather. One breed brilliantly adapted for a cold climate and known for its shaggy orange coat are Highland cattle. Even when the cattle are not adapted to the cold, farmers make sure all of their cattle stay fit and healthy throughout the winter by providing them with food and shelter when it is too cold for them to live outside.
Welcome back, children. We hope you enjoyed that. Now, in the video, we learned more about the different sorts of cattle that we breed to eat. I think now we should find out a bit more about Jim's cattle. Can we meet them, please, Jim?
Yeah, well, the best way of meeting them is I'll feed them and then they'll all want to come up and see us.
Brilliant, let's do that then.
So I'll get a bag of food off our trolley.
Great stuff. So what is in this food then, Jim?
This food has a mixture of barley, sugar beet and protein pellets, everything they need for a balanced diet to keep them healthy and growing nice and quickly.
Great.
Come on, girls. Come on. Come on.
Here we go.
Here we go.
Woohoo! They didn't wait around too long, did they? So how often would you do this, Jim?
We do this twice a day.
Okay.
Normally they get one early in the morning, but it's special today.
Great stuff.
So they got
wow.
This is like their Christmas dinner.
Lovely.
Lucky
They're
day.
acting like they haven't been fed, but they've been fed not long ago. So.
Come on, boys.
Great stuff. Lovely. So, Jim, what they eat, does that influence how they taste to us?
Over the whole lifestyle, yes, it would do. If you, they get the milk from the mothers, then as their stomach develops, they start eating the grass, and then they have this feed here. But basically, then silage, everything goes to develop the taste.
Great
and obviously,
stuff.
the breed, being a pure beef breed, again, they will influence the flavour.
Fantastic. Can we meet one particular one
Well,
of
we've
your
got one
cattle,
here
please?
ready for you to see.
Let's go round and meet him.
Yeah.
Great stuff. So this one looks a bit bigger than
It's a bit bigger.
the other cattle around there.
And this is my son Stephen, who helps me on the farm, and he's got hold of our 2-year-old bull. And if you want, I can show you some of the points of the animal.
Yeah, please. Can you show us the different parts? That'd be great.
As you can see, he is a very big chap. He weighs just over 1 ton, about 1,200 kilos.
It's heavy.
So, but he is a very good, like most animals, he's a big animal, but he's used to being hands-on and do. But he will be used to breed our cattle of the future. As you can see, he's very muscled, big and strong all over, very wide in the front where all the expensive butcher's joints are. So basically you've got all the steaks and things along the top, the roasting joints, the rump steak there, sirloin there, the brisket down on the front, and then you've got the shin along there, chuck steak. But as you can see, he's muscle, but there's no waste on him. There's no fat.
Pure
Fat
muscle.
is bad.
Yeah. And how would a cattle like this be different from a dairy cow?
Beef cattle are, by their name, they're for meat. They're full of muscle. Dairy cows are produced for milk, so they don't want to be carrying so much flesh. So a beef animal would be a lot heavier and a lot solid, a lot bigger boned.
Great stuff. Thank you for showing us around the bull there.
Thank you very much,
so, Jim,
Stephen.
I learned as well this week that when a calf is born, it's issued a passport. Is that right?
Yeah, you can see in the bull, if he puts his ear back forward again, they have ear tags in them, which is their identification. I got one here, and this is each animal when it is born is given its ear tag, which we have to identify it with, and this number will stay with that animal for life. And this tag means is a UK animal, and this is our herd number. All our animals have that number, and then the other one will have the individual number.
Fantastic, and they have a paper
And they
passport
also,
too.
they're like people, they have to have a passport. And an animal cannot leave the farm or go anywhere without this passport. And it's important for us, and it's also important for the consumer, because the consumer knows that wherever this animal has been can be tracked through its lifetime, and everything that we produce off this farm is safe to eat. So you can see, can you see his tag number there, Steve? You see his tag number there is the same number there, and that is very important. They say more for the consumer's confidence to buy, they know what they buy to eat is safe to eat.
Great stuff. Thank you so much. Jim, you're teaching us so much. I think we should give the children an opportunity to ask some questions now, if that's okay. So let's head over to All Saints Primary School again to see if the children of Miss Dalton's class have any questions for Jim.
Why are cows sacred in India?
That's a really good question. So, Jim, why are cows sacred in India?
Well, in India, they have the Hindu religion where it's sacrilege to eat beef.
Great stuff. Let's get another question for Jim.
Why do cows moo?
That's a really good question. Why do cows moo, Jim?
Why the cows? Well, ours are all very quiet at the moment. When we did the rehearsal later on, they will moo. The mooing is their way of communication between each others. If one is in the field and it gets lost, if it moos, the others are going to know where it is and they can find them. And each moo is different, like people's voices. You get to know when an animal is making a noise, who it is. And like children, some are noisier than the others.
Great stuff. Great questions, children. Let's go over to Downsbrook Middle School now and see if Mrs. Sharp's class have any questions for Jim.
How old are cows when they're killed?
That's a great question. So how old are the cows when they're killed, Jim?
On average, if you say around the 2 years of age is when they're ready for food production.
OK, let's go over and get one last question from Downsbrook Middle School.
Do cows know when really bad weather's coming?
This is a really good question. So do cows really know when the rain is coming, Jim?
But down where we are, it rains a lot of the time. They spend a lot of time lying down. But I'm not sure whether you can say either way. Maybe an old wives' tale. But,
I like to think that, you know,
yeah.
oh, well, the cows are lying down, so you know what, I'll take my umbrella today.
But we tend to think if they're all lying down, they're all full up and they're not hungry, so they're contented.
They might be having a sleep.
They might be having a sleep, yes.
Great
Yeah.
questions, children. And don't worry, Ben Weaver's School and Holy Trinity Rosehill, there'll be an opportunity to ask Jim some questions a little later on. Now, as Jim said, tracking the movements of the cattle is very important indeed, so that the food that is made can be traced back to its source. Now, we've got a very short video again. This is all about the food chain and a bit more about some of the products that are made from beef. Enjoy.
Beef, from farm to fork. Humans have been farming animals for food for thousands of years. And today that's still how we get most of the meat we eat, including beef, lamb, pork, and chicken. Cattle raised for beef live on farms like this one in Devon. There are around 200 cattle in this farmer's herd. He works hard all year round to take care of them and make sure they are happy and healthy. The farmer looks after the cattle until they're around 2 years old, the usual age at which they're turned into the beef we eat. In the United Kingdom, there are strict laws to ensure that all animals, including the ones we farm for meat, are properly cared for and treated well. Each animal is tagged so that it can be kept track of through each stage of its life. This is called an ear tag. The cattle live in different conditions depending on the time of year. In the summertime, when it is warm, they live outside in the field and eat fresh grass. In the winter, they live inside, as it is too cold and wet for them to stay out in the field. They live in a barn like this one and sleep on straw, keeping them warm and dry. On this farm, when they are inside, the farmer gives them a special feed containing barley, oats, sugar beet, minerals and vitamins. He also feeds them silage, which is preserved grass. The cattle can eat up to 30 kilograms of fresh food every day. On top of this, each animal drinks about 50 litres of water. That's enough to fill a bathtub. When it is time for the cattle to be turned into meat, they are taken to an abattoir to be killed and become what we call carcasses. They are then left to mature in large fridges. Once mature, each carcass is then made into lots of different beef products. At your local Tesco store, you can see the different cuts of meat, including beef joints, steak, mince, and burgers, ready for you to buy and enjoy for your dinner.
Welcome back, children. We hope you enjoyed that. Now, so far on this online field trip, we've learned all about how Jim looks after his cattle here on the farm, how the cattle can be traced along the food chain, and a little bit more about the products that are made from beef. We've learned so much so far. I think there's another opportunity now to get some questions for you, Jim. So let's go over to Ben Weavis Primary School to find out if Miss Hamilton's class have any questions on today's online field trip.
Can beef come from calves?
That's a really good question. So can beef come from calves, Jim?
No, beef from that meat they produce from calves is veal, is a separate production. What we're talking today is beef which comes from mature cattle.
Great question. OK, let's get another question. Let's go back over to Ben Weavis Primary.
How much beef does Britain eat every day?
That's a really good question. So, Jim, do you know how much beef Britain eats every day?
Well, we said earlier on that we eat 280,000 tonnes a year. So if we divide that by the number of days, I think we get to about 767 tonnes a day.
Oh, it's still a lot. That's
Still
a lot, isn't it? Whoa.
lot of steaks.
Fabulous. Great questions, Ben Weavis. Let's go to Holy Trinity Rosehill School now. Do we have any questions from Mr. Waller's class?
How much protein does beef contain?
That's a really, really great question. So, Jim, how much protein does beef contain?
Beef is packed with protein as part of a healthy, balanced diet.
Good stuff. Right, let's get one more question. Let's go back over to Holy Trinity Rosehill.
Does beef taste differently on its variety, depending on its variety?
That's a really good question. Thank you very much. So, Jim, does beef taste differently depending on its variety?
I'm biased. We have Simmental cattle here, so I'm going to say Simmental beef is the best. If you had an Aberdeen Angus breeder here, he would say Aberdeen Angus is best. But
So the answer is yes, it
today,
does.
Simmental is the best.
So, yes, it does taste differently.
They do have competition sometime for like steak competitions, and Simmental has won it a few times
Oh, you
at the Highland Show.
boaster.
But that's me being biased.
You boaster, you. Great questions, children. Now, as we know, there's lots of products that contain beef, and we have some of them in front of us now, don't we, Jim?
Yes,
so
yeah, nice
you're going
array.
to talk us through them, and I have got a bit of a nifty kettle here, and so we can use this. It's a bit like a map, so you can show us where all the different beef products come from, please, Jim, if that would be okay.
Right, if you start with the sirloin steak, which is there.
Okay, so that's just here.
If you remember back when we were talking about the bull, was near the back and along the top of the bull.
Great.
So then,
Lovely.
just behind the sirloin, we get the rump steak, which
Okay.
is just behind the sirloin.
There we
Again,
go.
you're still up on the expensive joints of meat. In the front here, we have the oxtail. That is what people use to make soups and casseroles with. It's becoming more popular now with the celebrity chefs have found it. So that's the oxtail. Here we have a joint of shin, part of the leg muscle, just above the leg. This again will be cut up into small pieces and used for casseroles and stews and pies and everything. What we have left over is then made into mince, and the mince can come from any part of the body, any small bits of meat that are too small to make a steak or a joint is made into mince. So no waste at all.
That's really good. So there's no waste whatsoever.
No waste
That's
at all.
So good. And children,
Yeah.
of course, beef is a tasty food. It's also good for you too as well. It's a source of protein, which is good for your muscles and your bones, and a source of iron as well, which is good for keeping your blood nice and healthy as well. What's your favourite way of eating beef then, Jim? Have to ask you.
I'm old-fashioned and boring. I would just go for plain sirloin steak.
No sauce on it?
No
Just
sauce,
oh,
no nothing. Just the steak itself should have the taste to sell itself.
Lovely. I like a nice spaghetti bolognese. So nice lean meat in with your onions and your garlic and your vegetables.
You're healthier eating than I am.
Yes, yummy, yummy. Okay, children, we've almost come to the end of this online field trip. I think there's just enough time to go back to each of our schools to find out what you've learned. So let's head over to All Saints Primary in Barry. What has Miss Dalton's class learnt today?
We have learned that Cornwall is a good place to keep cattle because it is mild and has lots of grass.
Fantastic. So Miss Dalton's class have learned that Cornwall's a great place to keep cattle because it's mild and has lots of grass.
Correct. Very good, yes.
Great stuff. Let's head over to Downsbrook Middle School now and find out what Mrs. Sharp's class has learned.
I've learned that there are more than 50 breeds of cows.
That's fantastic. So they've learned there's more than 50 breeds of cow.
Yep.
Let's go over to Ben Weaver's primary school now to see if Miss Hamilton's class have learned anything today.
We have learned that there's over 20 cuts of beef.
That's great. So they've learned there's 20 different cuts of beef.
Yes. It's
And we've got just a few of
just
them
a
here.
few of the selection here, but there are a lot more because we haven't got a table big enough for all of them. Yeah.
Are you impressed with all that knowledge
I'm
that
very
they've
good.
learned?
Yeah, they were listening.
They were
Yeah.
listening. They were. They always do. One final question for you, Jim, before we go. What's the best thing about being a farmer?
Best thing, there's lots of things, but probably working with animals like we do, they're our lifetime work. It's all family involved together, and you never tire, no matter what time or what day it is, when you bring a new calf into the world. The experience is doing that. It's like your own childbirth, maybe. You cannot put words to what you do.
Fabulous.
It's a very rewarding job, and I wouldn't do anything else.
Great stuff. Well, we've really enjoyed being on the farm. Thank you
It's
so
been a
much.
pleasure having
it's
you
nice
here.
to spend, just a little part of a day with you, a day in the life of Jim the farmer. It's been a real eye-opener. Thank you so much. And thank you so much, children, for watching and learning with us today. If you'd like to take part in our next online field trip on the 26th of March, that's a Thursday again, we're going to be in Oxfordshire learning all about water, so do take part in that. And don't forget, if you'd like to get more involved and go on a school farm to fork trip, then you can do just that, just like the children that you can see on the screen right now. It really is lots and lots of fun. So everything you need is on the website. The address was on the screen just then. But from myself and from Jim here in Penzance, it's goodbye. Goodbye, children.
Bye.
Goodbye, All Saints Primary. Goodbye, Dansbrook Middle School. Goodbye, Wen Weavis. And goodbye, Holy Trinity Rosehill.